Welcome to the Help I Started a Business Now What show, where we talk to artisans and people that help people at the 0 to 3 year mark of your business. So I'm Amber Christian, your host, and I am very pleased to welcome Lindy from Apothecary 19. And Lindy, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell our
Yes.
audience your background?
All right. So I am Lindy Spurgeon. I'm the owner and founder of Apothecary 19. And the royal we, it's me by myself. I specialize in small batch self care. So the way that translates for me is I try to bring things to market that make people feel good. So there's a lot of personal products in the way of like lotion, soaps, bath salts and oils, and then also home and personal fragrance. And I'm located in the Twin Cities and I work out of a studio in my basement.
And how long have you had your business?
I founded my business on Small Business Saturday of 2021. So I think that means I'm going into my third year. I think. I don't math great. So
That's okay. We don't all have to math grade today. Okay, so what we wanted to talk about today, the royal
mhm.
we, and there's two of us.
Yes.
One of the things that I find really interesting about something that you're doing is custom orders. And so this episode is a little bit about how it happened, and then later we'll laugh about how we actually met, which
Perfect.
is a fun story as well. So, in this How It Happened episode, I want you to demystify how difficult it is to get your first custom orders and how it actually happened and some of the kinds of things you did and how long it took to get those custom orders. I think
Yeah.
people can put a lot of pressure on themselves and think, I'm going to build out this whole infrastructure around a custom order, and they can make it really hard for themselves. Where I love the story of how you got probably what I think might be your largest custom order to date.
Yeah. Well, I think a good place to start with me is I have and there this isn't my term. I'm stealing this from someone else, but I have the how hard could it be gene where I just sort of I'll figure it out. Like that's how I've always kind of operated. So how hard can it be? I'll figure it out. And I'm one to sort of take things on and then figure it out figure it out later. And so I think when I'm working in fulfilling custom orders, I think one, I genuinely enjoy it. I have my flagship lines and the things that I make over and over again, and custom orders for me are something I really enjoy because they break up the monotony of doing and making the same thing over and over and over again. And so I have on my website a contact form where folks can reach out to me if they want custom orders. And I try to explain on there what they could maybe want a custom fragrance for. So I think when you're trying to get custom orders, if you can like take a second and kind of brainstorm who those people would be. Um, for me, like I've done a lot of custom candles for weddings. And so like brides, mother-in-laws, I got a lot of moms reaching out for their daughters getting married and stuff like that. The other one, and the story that I'm going to tell today, is for corporate gifts. So um, I knew when I started my business that corporate gifts would be a way to kind of get my product in the hands of people, and part of that comes from my previous work background. My background is in marketing and client loyalty. I worked for an agency for a very long time that was all around using corporate gifts to nurture leads. And so I basically just kind of turned what we used to do there into a product that I could sell. Corporate gifts has been the most difficult, I think, thing for me to break into, just because there are so many well-known companies out there that specialize in it's the end of the year. you need to give your clients a present or you need to give your employees a present. Here's what we offer. And they have huge marketing budgets and, it's hard to get your name out there. And so I just kind of, it happened organically. I have a very loyal customer from the Northeast Minneapolis farmers market that anytime she needs a gift for someone, she reaches out. And at one point back in the summer, she stopped by my stall at the farmers market and asked if it was something that I'd ever considered doing. And I gave her kind of my generic answer of like, oh, I'll do anything. Like, I can figure anything out. Like, what do you have in mind? And so we had this like loose conversation about it. And I came home from the farmer's market, like super jazzed, told my husband about it. Like, I think this is going to be the year that it happens. And I thought it was going to be something that maybe like they had an initiative in mind and that's what she was thinking about. And then crickets, like, didn't hear anything until I got a fairly frantic email from her the last week of October that was like, hey, this snuck up on me. Can you do 500 corporate gifts by Thanksgiving? And I was like, well, of course. Like, I mean, in my head, I'm like, okay, so if I do this math, like, this is an amount of revenue that I just have to figure it out. Like, I can't, like, this is like make or break for the holiday retail season. And so I was just like, well, do you, like, she said 300 to 500, I think. And I was like, well, is it 300 or is it 500? Because
That's
there's
a
like
little
that
different
is
cost profile.
right. That's a range. And so she was like, I don't actually know. Just do you think it would be possible? And so I was like, initially, without checking anything, yes, I can make it happen, but we're going to have to like nail this down in days. Like, I need to know by the first week of November what's going on. And this was also at the time that I was doing my advent calendars. So I already had like 1,000 things sitting on my bench. And then I was adding to it. So I got a little panicked. And then it was just kind of, it was kind of a logistical nightmare at the beginning because I realized like I didn't have enough boxes and I have custom packaging. So I had to call my box vendor and be like, hey, I need these and I need them in like a week. And I also can't afford to pay you a rush fee, because custom packaging is a whole nother ball of wax and conversation. And so luckily, the box vendor I use is started out as a small business and they're affordable for people in my situation. And I have a really great rep and, they did me some favors, but it all just kind of started at the farmer's market.
Mm-hmm. It started in building an intentional relationship with this
Yes.
person, right? And you were talking with them over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like you just one day, the custom order appeared out of nowhere.
Mm-mm.
This is someone you saw, it's someone you built up a relationship with, and then the conversation goes from there, right?
Yes.
And I think that was where you initially piqued my interest. So as an introvert, I met Lindy at the Jackalope Art Fair in Minneapolis. I was lurking. I didn't tell anybody I was from the magazine. And I was shopping. I was having fun. I was looking at products. And I wandered into Lindy's tent. And she started doing her spiel. And not everybody does, even when you walk in the tent at the craft fair. And I might have been giving introvert vibes. I'm not
Right.
Sure. I was with a few friends.
I think when you, and I may be misremembering this, but I feel like when you first walked up, I was talking to someone else about books. Because I'm always talking about books. This is how I get people they either smell stuff and then I get them or I badger them about the books they should read. And I think that's kind of I think you maybe we were talking about like some book that we had all read and that kind of eased it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I started looking around and I was like, they all have numbers on them. And so then I was curious because all her candles had numbers, not not necessarily names of scents and then what was in it. So then I started sniffing my way around the tent in a non-creepy way because it was like the candles I was smelling. Um, and I started smelling everything. And then I don't know how it happened, but we got talking about the recycling candle. How
Hmm.
did that happen? I don't remember.
I
You must have
think,
brought it up.
yeah, well, I always tell people when they make a purchase, I have a little square like card that I hand out that has a QR code on it that will take you to my website that is like candle care, how to get the most out of your candle, and then what do you do when the candle is done? Because I dislike waste. And so the wax that I use is water soluble. And so um, that usually sparks the conversation of like, when you're done with it, you can like put a plant in it or this or that and the other. And then I mentioned that I was working on a refill so that folks can, I have a website, and so I sell my stuff all over. I've shipped some stuff internationally, but mostly in the United States and Canada. And so I have folks that have tons of jars at home that are like, can I, it'd be cool if we could just get the wax. And so I've been on a journey since probably July of figuring out how to get these refills
Mhm.
on the shelves.
Yes, and so that triggered my interest. So then I started asking her a ton of questions about candle refills and 3D printing. And I'm sure she thought I was a complete weirdo.
I didn't think you were weird. I thought you were cool. I'm like, nerds unite. Like,
Right? And so that for me was incredibly intriguing. And I was like, we have to keep talking and we're going to do some future things. A spoiler alert for everybody that sees this in the magazine. We're going to kind of talk about what that process looked like as well. Even though that's not necessarily our focus today, we met nerding out over candles
yeah, and recycling.
and recycling. Yes,
Yeah.
big recycler here. Yeah. So it's just exciting developments. But I think a big part of it too was the approach you used. I
Yeah.
think at the craft fair, it was very low key. It's I didn't feel I felt welcomed without feeling like I wasn't bombarded, and just kind of naturally felt your way through a conversation. And I think it was good that you started with books because it was
Yeah.
about here, buy my thing. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, we're talking about this. And even though none of us will remember the book that it was that we
Yeah.
read, and I think I left with a couple book recommendations too, if I remember right.
Probably. I'm a pusher when it comes to books.
But it
So,
was a great technique. And so for people that are thinking about, gee, how do I get custom orders? Be a human, build a
yeah.
relationship with people. You showed up in the
And
same
put it out
space
there.
and put it out
You
there.
gotta, as makers and artists, we know everything that we do. Our customers don't know what they don't know. They don't know what we do. And so I think the biggest thing is just putting it out there that you offer that. And
Yes,
so,
and that allows and information about how people follow up on it too. I think the other
mhm,
thing that's important is the fact that you had a card with some information that you could follow up. And
mhm,
people, you could be like, "Hey, here, go to my website," or someone might see your product and go, "Oh, this would be perfect for my friend. Oh, I have a friend that's getting married that would love
yeah,
to do a custom order," and you created a really nice means and an easy way to be able to just hand that out, educate a person, and then they move on. And
mhm,
you never know how many times you have to do that. But you're right. Who would realize that you do custom work, even though most people do?
yeah,
But I don't think the average consumer necessarily would think
mm-mm,
about it, realize it, or engage in that. And so that's the
yeah,
first part of this process is just educating your consumer because you
mhm.
don't know who's showing up and buying your candles regularly and then decides they need a huge corporate order
Right.
so many months
Yeah.
later.
I mean, and I thought like with the one that happened to me, I was like, oh, it might be 10 or 20. I had no idea. And like, I think another thing too is like when you're doing custom work, like you've got to make sure that it benefits you in the way, like if you just want to make the thing to make the thing, then that's a benefit. But for this particular order for me, like the person that did the purchasing works at a company where all of the clients that got these client gifts were interior designers. And so like I sent like I discount it, like I took that into consideration and was able to like take a step back, look at the big picture and be like, I'm willing to make a little bit less money now, knowing that these are going to a bunch of people that are dealing with like high net worth individuals that might want to have like really nice home fragrance in the fancy houses that they're building and like have enough money for a interior designer. So I think that that's another good thing to keep in mind as you're doing, pricing is a whole nother conversation in its own right. But, and I think that when you're having these conversations at markets, when you're out in your community and you're meeting with people, like that's a way. I mean, and we had a conversation before we started recording about how lucrative that craft fair that I did was not. But like, you're able to have, if you're at a fair and maybe you didn't have a lot of revenue, but you make one connection that turns into a loyal customer or something like that, like the revenue that you get from it is more than just the day or that kind of stuff. So just thing to tuck in your hat for when it gets hard,
Yes,
and
that
you need to remember the silver linings of everything.
yes, that you may be brand building.
Yeah.
And so I said sometimes you might have to reassess of you do an event that maybe it doesn't have the foot traffic, but if you're focused on some of the connections, like the way that you had been
Mm-hmm.
focused on connect with the people that are there because you don't know where that will lead.
Mm-hmm.
It puts a different frame on it and it softens it a little. If something gets
Yeah.
rained out or it's not as great or something else happens, it sort of softens it. Oh, well, I'm not going to go back to that one because there was a weather or other issue. And then you're like, but wait a second. I met someone that became a customer that is now ordering periodically from me
Mm-hmm.
and tells their friends and other things, or someone that amplifies on social media or other kinds of things. And so if you sort of tweak your mindset a little bit, I think
Mm-hmm.
that helps too. We all need as much help as we
Yeah.
can get in how
Right.
we approach these things, especially in the early years.
Yes. Yes.
That not everything you do will immediately translate to sales. And that's actually normal.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like a little bonus later on down the road when it does translate into a sale. So
Absolutely.
it's like finding
Absolutely.
money in your coat pocket in the closet. That's how I like to think
Absolutely.
about it.
I
Or
love
a
it.
Venmo balance you forgot about, to
Even better.
use the, technology of our time, to date myself with the money in the coat pocket. But
Well, wonderful. Okay. So this
yeah.
has been great. Tell people how they can find Apothecary 19 on the
Yeah.
socials and everywhere.
Awesome. So I'm at apothecary 19, like the apothecary 19 on Instagram. Fair warning, it is like half business, half my personality. So it's a little, it can get a little unhinged at times, but it's fun. And then my website is apothecary19.com.
Wonderful.
And that's
Well,
where I'm at digitally.
wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And
Yeah.
thank you, everyone who has tuned in to our first episode.
Awesome.